Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. We are here to talk about making comics today, I think. We are once again joined by the legend that is PJ Holden. And for some reason, he wants to talk to us about tomatoes. And I have no idea why he's here. But he messaged me a couple of weeks ago and said, Matt, when I come back from holiday, I want to talk to you about a technique. So PJ, welcome back to the show, buddy. I'm flustered because I've got no idea why you're here. Why?
Okay, do you not know? Okay, well, let me clear up some things, right? When we're talking about technique and tomatoes, it is not a cooking technique, right? There's a thing called the Pomodoro Technique. The Pomodoro Technique. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, which is hence the tomato.
Well, duh. Everyone knows that.
Everyone knows that. A Pomodoro is also a kind of kitchen timer. It's a timer that would typically have, I think, 60 minutes is typical on one of those timers. But there's a guy called, and I've written his name down here because it's an Italian one. Francesco Cirello came up with this thing called the Pomodoro Technique. I mean, he has a website that goes into so much detail you'd swear it was nuclear physics, but it is not. It is the simplest thing in the world. It is genuinely so simple. I can make you understand it in about 2 minutes.
It's going to be a very quick show then.
I know. But the thing is, what you do with that information and how you work with that information and so on. So the Pomodoro Technique is this: you set a 25-minute timer. You do one particular task, which might be drawing, it might be writing, whatever it is, it's one particular thing. You do it with absolute concentration. Nothing's allowed to interrupt you. You do it to that timer, which is 25 minutes. When that timer finishes, you set another timer for 5 minutes, and that's your break. You can do whatever you like in that 5 minutes, whatever you like. Once your 5 minutes is up, you start again on the 25-minute timer, and again focus on the task in hand to get it done. You tell your family, I'm doing a Pomodoro, just leave me alone for 25 minutes, whatever it is, and no one will interrupt. People will actually. That's the weird thing because you know what it's like working from home. People will interrupt you all the time, but for some reason,
I've got an 18-month-year-old daughter. I'm never interrupted. I don't think little legs will understand. Like, honey, Daddy's Pomodoroing. I'm Pomodoroing.
She might not get the nuance of it, I'll grant you.
We try to say she's thick. You try to say my child's thick.
No, I'm trying to say she's your average child. You know, they're not going to get all of that. But the idea is that you repeat that sort of 25 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes, 5 minutes, 25 minutes. You do that 4 times, and on the 4th timer you take a 25-minute break. That's your so in essence what you're doing is you're doing 2 hours of solid work on one particular task. Now you can, I mean, if your task is like, if you're finishing one thing and starting another thing, you know, that's 2 different tasks, but that's fine. The idea is it's absolute concentration, and you do that. I find it incredibly helpful. I find it because the thing with drawing or writing, I would imagine as well, is similar sort of thing, is your brain goes everywhere. You're kind of grabbing, you're like a magpie trying to pick up things and do things. But when you enforce this kind of 25-minute timer thing and you go, I'm going to do this with a timer and this is all I'm going to do, that's all you do. Now, you find as well, I mean, for me, well, first of all, you don't need a timer. There are apps for that, as there are apps for everything. I use an app called Focus Keeper, which is on the iPhone. There's probably similar apps. The Pomodoro Technique is a trademarked name of this guy, Francesco Cirello. And so as such, he takes down any app that calls itself Pomodoro Timer. He just whips that thing down. But the techniques are all the same. It's called Pomodoro Technique, and it really is as simple as that: 25 minutes and a 5-minute gap, and you do that 4 times. Then your final gap is 25 minutes, and then you repeat the cycle. I find, because it's so intense, the work that you're doing, because you're sort of so intensely concentrating on it, I find that if I can get 10 Pomodoros done, 10 or 12 Pomodoros, I can usually kill a page. I can finish a page in that time, but it can wreck you a little bit. You can be fairly exhausted because that is all you're concentrating on. I find it's helpful when, for example, over the course of time, you're finding you're slowing down and you're thinking, why am I slowing down here? And what's really happening isn't that you're getting slower at drawing. What's happening is that every time you draw a little bit, you're kind of distracted by something else. You go, what? I'll just check Twitter. And then you come back to it and then you draw a bit. And the time that you're drawing measured against the time that you're, just checking Twitter or looking to see what's in the news, that gap is, the ratio there to draw on to faffing around is substantially in the favor of the faffing around part. But your brain doesn't process it that way. Your brain doesn't see it like that. Your brain goes, work is hard, and I have worked a long, long time. Oh, bit of relaxation. That never does me any harm. That seemed to go in no time at all. And so they're kind of, your ratio of work to faffing is very bad. I find the Pomodoro helps, because what happens is you go, I'll set this Pomodoro now. If I've had a gap of, things have started to slow down, I don't quite know, I'm struggling to get work done. And even if I'm doing a difficult page that's really hard to do because your layouts are difficult, or they're, it's a crowd scene or whatever it is, I find that what tends to happen is I'll sit and start drawing on it, and my attention will start wandering, because this is hard work and I'd rather be thinking about something else. Set first Pomodoro, that first Pomodoro where you go, let's go. You set your timer, start your timer. And as I say, I use an app called Focus Keeper. There's 2 versions of Focus Keeper on the App Store. There's a free version, which is fairly simple. It has adverts in it. I think you can pay them for the full one. The full one's like £4 or £5 or something. It is a drop in the ocean. And if you find it useful, it's incredibly useful. And I like every artist I've ever talked to that's used this or have advised to use this has found it useful. What tends to happen is you use it and then you feel like you don't need it, and then you stop using it, and then you get slower, and then you think, oh, I better start using this again. So you find yourself cycling around like that. But what I do find genuinely happens is on the first time of using a Pomodoro, that there's been a substantial gap of not using them, what will happen is I will set that timer and I'll start drawing, and I'll get what I think is a reasonable amount of work done. I'll think, that must be 15 minutes done now at least. And you look up at the Pomodoro, it's 2. And
2 minutes.
And your brain's going, how is that only like 2 or 3 minutes? I've been at this. It feels like an hour. It feels like this should be done. And you go, okay, I'll keep going. But as you do that, as that first Pomodoro gets to the end of its run, you're kind of going, surely that's 25 minutes now. And you're looking up and you're going, no, it's 16 minutes. You do some more and you look at this, must be it. And you look at it, it's going, right, okay, that's my first break. Thankfully you have your break and the time vanishes like nothing, it's gone, and you're thinking, well, where did that time go from onto the second Pomodoro? And your perception of time and what's happening with real time starts to kind of gather up together. It starts becoming more one-to-one, and suddenly you find yourself able to do it, and you find yourself, your concentration becomes more focused on what you're doing. You find yourself kind of sitting doing the work, and not just sort of and maybe this is something that I struggle with more than others, I don't know, but I do find my concentration can be easily kind of distracted by things, but having the timer there is the thing that keeps me on track. So
I was going to say,
that's the gist of it.
Because basically what you're saying is people that work in comics, creative people, are unfocused, because we're like, shiny. I
think everyone
shiny.
is. Yeah, I think first of all, everyone is anyway, right? So I'm not gonna say comics people in particular are just
go on,
easily distracted.
name and shame.
But I will say, well, I will say that comics in particular needs huge amounts of focus. I mean, that's the difference. I mean, if you're working in and I've done all of these jobs, so I'm not going to say anything that I haven't done, but I've worked in a shop. I've worked on a shop floor. It doesn't require a huge amount of focus. You go to your client, your customer, you sell them a thing, you move on. And although having hands on my heart, I have genuinely in the middle of a sales pitch forgot what I was talking about, but because I got distracted. But it doesn't require the same amount of focus on the single task. I mean, I would imagine, if you're building a house, laying bricks, that does require focus on the one thing constantly, repetitively doing that same thing, but that's a repetitive repeating thing. Whereas if you're drawing a comic book, that's kind of pure focus on doing something new, but on that one task. So it's in all the kinds of jobs I've done, and generally my work in life, as I was explaining to you earlier in our sound check, I started working in 1984. I started working in a shop, and it was a computer shop, and I went from doing sort of shop, the kinds of jobs you give to a 15-year-old when they're working in a computer shop, to doing sales, to doing support, to training people, to programming. So I've done all of those things. And programming is maybe the closest, I think, to the kind of focus you need for drawing comics or writing comics, I'd imagine, where you've got to sit down and just singularly focus on this one task. and to the exclusion of all else.
Yeah, no.
But the thing is, comics
agree.
don't pay as well as programming.
Well, that's the conversation at the moment. Do you know what I mean? If you're on any kind of social media, you see people talking about comics page rates and how much creators should be paid at the moment. But that's for another video. But
yeah.
With regards to obviously the Pomodoro technique, I love it. I think it's a brilliant idea. 25 minutes on, 5 minutes off. I think that's good, especially because I'm trying to teach people on this channel to go out and make their own comics, and a lot of them I don't have time. It's like, well, you can afford.
Yeah,
two
well, that's the
Pomodoros.
other thing I find ideal Pomodoro situation is, and I've drawn a little diagram for myself, is you get to do 4 Pomodoros between 9 and 12. 9 o'clock and 12 o'clock, you get to do 4. Between 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock, you get to do another 4. So that's 2 hours, 4 hours of work in total. And not just 4 hours of work, 4 hours of pure concentration on whatever that job is that you're doing. It's essentially 4 hours of pure concentration on that. And then in an ideal world, you'd get to do another 4 between 7 and 8 and 9, and then another 4 between 10 and 1 a.m. That's the sort of ideal world. But the reality is sometimes what happens is you don't get that time in the day. You might have a lunch hour, and and the thing is, if you've got a lunch hour, you've got a 30-minute gap, and if you set a Pomodoro, that's 30 minutes. And one thing that I think that people do, and I've tried all sorts of task management things and so on, and I think the thing that strikes me is that the focus sometimes is on, I've got to finish this page. That's my task, is to finish this page. And what happens is you can't possibly finish a page in a short enough amount of time to make it feel like you've done anything. It doesn't feel like an accomplishment if you've spent 2 hours on a page and it's not finished. It feels like you've wasted, you've got nowhere near ticking that off the list. Whereas if you switch your focus to, instead of being about how many pages you do, to how many Pomodoro timer things you can do, it becomes, have I done 4 of those today? Have I done 1 of those? That I ticked off. I've only had a chance to do half an hour. Tick, I've done half an hour. What did I accomplish? And you look at the page, you go, actually, that's not a bad amount of work for half an hour. And that's all I got to do. So you want to kind of, especially if you're working full time or part time in another job, and comics are a secondary focus, moving to away from the idea that every finished page is a task complete, to every half hour that you get, or 25 minutes that you get to draw or write, is a task complete. It becomes a much more satisfying thing. And I can guarantee you, if you have, years and years ago, this sales rep guy came in, he wanted a bit of software written, and the idea was that he had this circle, right? So this pie chart essentially, and on the outside of it were these various rungs, and there was something like 200 rungs, and they represented cold calls. They represented a sales rep calling you without having to, knowing who you are. And then in towards that, and about every 10th one of those smaller slices, there was a divided up concentric rings, and within that it was these were warm calls. So for every 10 cold calls, you'll get 1 warm call, and then within that there was in quarters essentially 1 sale. And the idea was, he said, was, if you don't worry about the sales, don't worry about the middle thing, don't worry about the target, worry about the cold calls. Those are the things you can control. Do all of those, and if you fill that, I guarantee you this other stuff will fill. And let me tell you how that applies. If you did a similar thing with a circle, and on the outside of the circle were, say, 10 hours worth of Pomodoros, and each of those Pomodoros is half an hour, and in the center of that was 2 pages. Don't focus on drawing 2 pages. Don't think I've got to tick off 2 pages. Think, if I do all of these little dots on the outside, every single one of those Pomodoros, I guarantee you'll have 2 pages. Absolutely guaranteed it. There's no 2 ways about it. So that it kind of allows you to be successful in how you changing your mentality about what success means in terms of finishing things.
It's breaking the, as you would, I can imagine, as an artist, you're breaking a page down to panels anyway, and then breaking it down to foreground, background.
Yeah,
you're just doing that on
a
large
how
scale.
You eat an elephant. one small bite at a time. That's
No, just go straight in. Right, but is there? Because I know when I write, I'm pretty good. When I write, I can lock myself away, and when I've got the time, I can do 6-7 hours straight, no breaks, except for going to the toilet, maybe filling my water up and stuff like that. But is there a risk of, one, not so much losing focus when you're getting to the end of the Pomodoro, because you kind of think, I'm kind of in my groove now, I just want to keep going, because I'm worried that my quality's going to drop.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think I think sometimes we can be a bit too mystical about, about creativity. I think it's sometimes we kind of think there are all these factors, and if things are working, things will keep working. But my genuine experience is that it's that idea that if you wait, inspiration will hit you. No, inspiration doesn't hit you like that. Inspiration hits you because you sat and you've written out 100 different things, and
I get
because
mine in the
there's 100 of them.
My inspiration comes in the shower every time.
Well,
I'm not even joking.
You're thinking, yeah, but that's the thing. You're thinking of things, and your brain is kind of firing off lots of these ideas, and then they come to you. But if you do nothing, inspiration won't hit. But the thing is, I think we put too much stock on the idea of mystical thinking when this stuff is kind of a work. It's kind of a job. It's kind of sit down and do the thing. I genuinely find sometimes there are two sides of when I'm using a Pomodoro. There's the when I haven't used it for a while and I'm finding it a struggle to draw, and I find the 25 minutes really helpful to kind of focus and bring my time in line with reality, so that I know exactly how much time I've spent drawing, and it is 25 minutes. It's not 2 minutes. It's not, I thought it was 2 hours but it turns out to be 10 minutes. It is a proper 25-minute chunk. But there's also that 5-minute get up and walk away. That 5-minute get up and walk away. So when sometimes I'll find myself, I'll be doing the Pomodoro and the buzzer will go off saying take a 5-minute break, and I'll be mid-line and I'll think, oh, but I can just keep going here. But what happens is I do keep going, and then I get into the next 25-minute thing, and it's unhealthy. You still need a break, Now, the 25 and 5 minutes is almost arbitrary. You can change that to 40 minutes and 10, or 15.
So it's
minutes
not
and 2.
strict. I'm not saying you're like, oh, this tomato's going to tell me what to do. I mean, in the respect of
no.
Like if you feel that you could
those.
do 45 minutes and 15 minutes off, you can move the parameters and still get the same
results. Yeah, absolutely. I find 25/5 is perfect, because it means if I say, like for me, an average page can take, and so I'm always wary of how long I say it takes me to draw something, because there are people who go, oh, it's a bit fast, or oh, it's a bit slow. When I talk about drawing time, what I'm talking about is pen on paper, moving pen around, right? And I'm also a big exponent of Jack Kirby's. Every time I rub something out, it costs me money, so I try and avoid rubbing things out. What I'll do
I
is
love that
I'll
say.
pencil
I love
something.
That say.
Yeah, I know, it's great. I'll pencil something, and sometimes you pencil a thing and it's great. It's nothing wrong with it, except your head's too big, or the character should be more in focus. And you think, well, how can I fix that? And you could redraw it, or what you can do is rescale things and take them in and rescale them. Just do that. So I would say it used to be about 3 to 4 hours would take me to finish a page. It takes me that now to ink a page. But
is that 3 hours just pencils, and then 3 hours to ink, or 3 hours in total for
Well,
everything?
it used to be 3 hours pencils and inks. So,
wow.
But it depends very much on no, that used to be. That's not the case now. I mean, the pages I'm doing now are insane. So they're crowd scenes and jungles, and it's
someone hates you.
It's taking me a long time. But the thing is, what you do first of all is you can find out how long it takes you to do a page. Because you can see how many Pomodoro. I mean, I'd be an advocate of writing this stuff down, not just doing it. And then your app will probably keep a track of it as well for you. But also, it's handy to get a little diary and draw circles for each of the Pomodoros you plan, because it means you can plan your week out. If someone says to you, how long is it going to take you to draw this 5-page strip, you can go, right, well, let me see. On Wednesday, I look after the kids. On Thursday, I'm working on my part-time job. Monday, I've got half an hour here. And so you can slice those times up through the week and go, I can get half an hour done there, I can get 1 hour done here, I can get 1 hour done there, 2 hours done there. So, and I know it takes me about 4 to 5 hours to draw a page, so that means add all those up again. That's how many days it'll take me.
And that's
so
pretty much how you could work out what your page rate is as well, because you can say that's going to take me 8 Pomodoros, and that's how much your time times by what you want your hourly rate to be.
I wish I could say, look, publishers, I've worked out how long it takes me to do a page, and here's the new rate I want. But that's not the way it works. The way it works is they go, here's how much money you're getting. Now, you can go, what I need to do is draw faster.
I don't mean for you that's a professional. I mean, like, if someone's starting out, and someone approaches them saying, what's your page rate? It might be for someone that's, working on a comic in a part-time kind of, regime, going, well, I'm going to work on this mainly in the evenings and the weekends, and if I break it down into Pomodoros and what my hourly rate would be if I was, working a full-time job. I can work out what my personal page rate is, and then I can go into like the independent market. Okay, you want me to that where it's going to be this, and you can slice that down.
Yeah, you can do that. I think though that the danger with that is, Matt, that we all know comics aren't economical.
They make loads of money. I'm joining Substack tomorrow. You heard it here first.
But I would say though that what it does do is it points to you going, well, look, I know you want me to draw it in this style, but this style takes me this amount of time, and I can't afford to do that. I can afford to do it slightly, this way or that way, or but it does. You need to measure things to know what they are. You can't really get a grasp of how long it takes to do a page.
Could you draw me a comic in a slightly bruised Pomodoro style? Slightly, slightly a Pomodoro bruised, on the turn.
I mean, the possibly apocryphal story that I've heard it of Steve Dillon. I think I've heard of a couple of other people's. Is they used a timer to draw, but what they did was they used a timer to decide how long it would take them to finish a page or a panel. I think it was a panel, was all I heard, and so it would be 25 minutes to do a panel, 25 minutes to do a panel. And when they wanted a page rise, they simply decreased the panel time. So they wanted a wage increase. They just went, it's no longer 25 minutes now, it's 20 minutes, and that's the story. So there are things to do, but I would say that it's definitely a good way to focus. It's a good, if you're struggling to find those gaps in your schedule, and there are gaps. Everyone has gaps where they can sit and do things. The problem is always that they kind of go, they see those gaps and they go, that's 25 minutes. What can I do in 25 minutes? Next to nothing. But you set a timer up and you do just that, and you find suddenly you can do quite a substantial amount. I've definitely done it where I've kind of gone, I know I've got to pick my wife up in about 35 minutes. I could sit and look for a thing to watch on Netflix for 10 minutes, or I'll set a timer and let's see what I can get done. And it's always surprising. It's always more than you think it's going to be.
You are preaching to the clergy, my friend. And this is what I've tried to be, pushing on this channel. It's like, we'll sit there, and I caught a lot of crap online for this. When all I said was, when I first wanted to start making comics, what I did was, I was playing Call of Duty. I was on my Xbox. I used to love my Xbox. And it would come up to playing Call of Duty for an entire year. And it lets you know how long you've been playing it. And I'd played it for an entire month. I was online chatting with my mates. It's social, so you don't feel like you're killing time. You're just killing zombies. But it literally it kind of hit me. I was like, if I was to die tomorrow, my wife can't go, you had good XP on Call of Duty. It's like, I've always wanted to write a comic, and I thought, do you know what? If I reduce that and put it into something creative, something that's going to last, at least then I've got something to show for it. And I caught so much crap online for just saying, look, how I started making comics was I put the joypad down. And I'm not saying everyone needs to put their joypad down completely, but instead of playing for 2 hours a night, play for an hour a night, and do 2 Pomodoros, because I know as a writer, I can write a page in 25 minutes easy, a good page. Do you know what I mean? If I've pre-planned everything. So I love this technique. But my question is, how many Pomodoros is too much in a day?
Well, I find there's definitely an exhaustion hits me when I do this, because I don't think we're geared up for intense concentration very well. I think it really is a properly hard thing to do. So I find myself that even though I can budget for 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, I can budget for about 16 Pomodoros in a day. It would be like if from dawn to dusk I could get that many in, and that would kill almost any double page spread I have. That would certainly pencils, that would kill it. I just find by the time you've done 10 or 12, you're exhausted.
I was going to say, is there not a risk of doing such labour intensive? I mean, drawing comics is labour intensive, and hats off to you guys that actually do that, because it to me it's like magic. Do you know what I mean? I send you words and you come back with art, and it's just it boggles my mind. But is there not a risk of focusing so much that you kind of burn yourself out because you're putting too much pressure on yourself to focus that 25 minutes after 25 minutes, even just with a 5-minute break?
Yeah. I mean, everyone will find that different, and it's all well and good for me to say, oh, you'll get to about 12 and you'll feel a bit exhausted. Some people might not even have that time in a day to do that. It might be 2, and they may well have day jobs, and they may well have lives that don't even, even half an hour is a bit, is hard to do. So I wouldn't in any way condemn anyone for going, this is too much. It is a good technique, and it's a great technique if you're finding yourself in a position where you're capable of the work. You just for some reason haven't been able to get it started. It's a hard, and I find that weirdly my deferment stops being I cannot draw to I can't press the start button on this Pomodoro timer. And it's really telling when that becomes your new kind of procrastination. Sort of procrastinate about drawing. It's like, oh, I'll just take these other things before my pen's dirty, or I need to set it, and the Cintiq's not at the right angle. I have to do all of that. That you can sort of bluff yourself into thinking that's all okay. But then when you've used the Pomodoro long enough that the moment you start a Pomodoro, you'll start drawing. You'll know that's going to happen. So what happens then is you start going, I know I should just press start on the Pomodoro. I really don't want to. I don't want to. And you're just conscious that you're procrastinating. I mean, there's no kind of, you can't even fake it to yourself anymore. You're conscious that that's what you're doing. So that's the sort of downside of it. But at the same time,
I love it. I think
sometimes that's what you need.
I think it's a great way to stay focused, and I think it can work both ways. You could probably put way too much pressure on yourself to get too much done, but also I think especially for people starting it, it's a great way for structure, because again, what you guys do is magic, and if you want to get into this full time, you need to treat it like a full time job. I think there's this misunderstanding about comics. I've said this on the channel before. Everyone wants to break into comics, but they don't realize it's a comic business. You're a freelancer. You're a work for hire. If you don't draw a page, you don't get paid. You don't get holiday pay. You don't get sick pay. If you're not drawing, you're not making money. And I think people are like, I write comics, or I work in comics. I draw comics, and they don't realize. But it's a grind. You need to hustle. You need to get pages done.
I remember before I had any sort of professional work at all published, I remember thinking, if I want to be a comic artist, I need to be able to draw 22 pages a month, at least. I need to be able to do that. And so I took a script that I had. I know I was working, I actually had 2 part-time jobs at that. No, I had not a full-time job at that point. And I took this 24-page story and I did it in a month. And that was, to me, that signaled, yeah, you can do this. You can do that amount of pages. I mean, I was taking it very basically, like if I was drawing, I don't know, a Marvel book or something, they expect 22 pages per month. You expect 12 episodes, so you need to do 22 pages per month. It's only now, having had a career, having drawn professionally, having made my income from drawing comics, I look at it and go, you need 16 paid pages of work per month. Doesn't matter who the publisher is, doesn't matter where the publisher is, doesn't matter what the book is, you need 16. If you drop below 16, financially you're in trouble. If you get above 16, you're giving yourself a little bit of wiggle room for the next month, but anything below 16, and you're, if you sustain that for 2 or 3 months, you're in real trouble. Me bucko, that's career, that's the end of career. This explains the kind of frenzied look in every comic artist's eye. Yeah, well, it's not hard, like backbreaking hard, but it's hard like it is, it's still a job, it's still freelance, you've still got to do this, and sometimes the work will just disappear from you without you knowing why, what the causes of it was. It's not for the faint-hearted. I remember getting a guy in, he was doing some plumbing work or something for me, and we were talking about freelancing, and he went, you'll not be doing this next year, you'll not be freelancing next year. I was like, why? He says, you can just tell some people it's just not for them.
He took one look at you and went, in that Denny show, went, it's not for you, mate. It's not for you, mate.
Well, okay. I went, so do you? I'm definitely going to be doing this, but genuinely, the thing that puts me off drawing comics is that freelance nature of it. Is the fact that you do have to do that. It's not even, it used to be notional. It used to be a notional, if I can do 24 pages, I've done it once, so I can do it every day for like the next 365 days, plus
it doesn't counteract
every year for the next 10 years.
Or, you having a holiday, or one of your kids getting ill and stuff like that. Because my old boss used to joke to me, because obviously he knew I wrote comics, he's like, oh, so you're going to go work for Marvel, are you? Like, in a kind of like sarcastic kind of way. And I was like, dude, I'm not going anywhere, because let's look at, average Marvel comic now is 22 pages, starting rate, is probably around $100 a page. So that's $2,000, which sounds absolutely fantastic. But then when you take off the tax and convert it into pounds and stuff like that, it's like, I can't live, and I have a mortgage. We've got childcare.
Yeah.
It's like that's
Yeah,
not going to pay.
it's not,
It's hard.
Again, it's not for the faint-hearted. I mean, certainly if the thing with the big two publishers is that if you get noticed by them, you'll get a certain amount of work, and then you'll have to jump through huge amounts of hoops, which they will do. It will seem deliberate. It will seem deliberately like they're trying to put you off, and then you'll get, you might become quite the flavor for them, and they'll give you loads of work, and then for reasons you'll never quite understand, you might get no work at all. I mean, I've joked with a friend of mine, professional writer, about this, and it's like the bit in Clash of the Titans where the gods just pick up a character from their chess set and go, aha, this is the guy we will toy with now. And then when they're done with you, they'll go, into the bin he goes.
But that's the
whom the gods would destroy, they would first drive mad. But
that's the thing, though, is, I'm not saying horrible. Like, there's always going to be a new flavour of the month. There's always going to be a new hot person. Editors are going to have their favourite creators that they want to work with, and if you're not in that, because again, that's half the battle with comics. You could be the most talented person in the world, but if you're a dick and an editor doesn't like you, you're not getting a job. It's as simple as that. And like, if you have,
I mean, I know what you're sort of paraphrasing there is the tentpole thing of, be fast, be good, or be easy to get along with. Any two of those will do, but there is a sort of ineffable kind of, or fourth mysterious quantity X. Be that, and you'll be fine. And it's like, well, I don't know how to be that. Yes, but you have that at the moment. But we might take that away from you any minute now. Who knows? So there's a certain amount of, you can feel as secure as you like. And I even now, I'm working for, I'm doing stuff for 2000 AD. I've done stuff for Marvel, DC, a lot of the kind of Dark Horse and so on. I don't feel terribly secure. I mean, I'm still kind of gig to gig, and I've had a good long career, so it is difficult. And the thing is, when you're an artist as well, you can only really go gig to gig anyway. You can't kind of have 4 or 5 plates and spinning ready to pick up if one drops, because it just doesn't work like that when you're drawing. It sort of works a little like that when you're a writer, but not like that when you're drawing.
Not so, to put any creators off kind of might be watching this, but is that sound horrible? Is that a really hard life? Because you've got kids, you've got a family, you've got a mortgage, whatever. Is that like hard for budgeting and stuff, like, because you don't know when your next big downfall. That would scare the crap out of me. That's why I would never give up full-time work, and I would always do comics on the side.
The trick for me has always been to have an in the bank 3 or 4 months worth of money. It's money that if anything happens, I've got 3 months worth of wages. No. This is, I felt this way since the get-go. This is when I first sort of went freelance. I had about what I thought was the equivalent of 6 months worth of money in the bank, but was really about 3 months worth of money. But the thing is, if you have lost all your gigs and you've got nothing, it might take you a month to scramble around looking for a gig. It might take you a month then to draw that work, and it might take you a month to be paid for that work, right? That's 3 months. So if it takes you a month and you can't find any work, that's when you give up. Because that's when you start looking for a job, because even if you get that into that second month and you've got some work, then it's still going to take 2 or 3 months for the money to come in. So at that stage you need a job. So that's why I've always had 3 months cash in the bank essentially, or something like it, because at some point my gigs could dry up and I'll be like, right, scramble and look for work, and a full month might pass. And nothing might come. And I mean, sometimes the other way around. Sometimes you get so much work on your plate, it's like, I can't. How am I going to do this? I've got to somehow budget my time better for what I'm. Pomodoros. You don't want to say no to any of it. Pomodoros. You Pomodoro the shit out of it. Oh, sorry. But the thing, I mean, again, come around and back to the Pomodoros. Some mornings you'll wake up and you'll feel like, this is a day I really need to get stuff done, and those are the days where I go, right, time to Pomodoro this. Other days are more kind of, okay, I need to get a page done today, that'll be easy, and I don't need the Pomodoro stuff at all. But those days where you wake up and you go, I have got to get X amount of work done in X amount of time, this is the best technique for doing that. So
I think that's a wonderful technique. I think it's great. I think I think that will help a lot of people watching this channel, especially people that are starting out, because going out and making your first comic is a daunting task. It's a huge mountain to climb, but it's not as hard as it appears to be, especially if you enjoy it, which is the whole part of this channel. Getting people to make their own comics. I think that's a wonderful idea, and I'm so glad you suggested doing this video. We have gone over the 25 minutes, so we have missed our first Pomodoro. So it's
well, sure.
No, that's cool. Thank you so much for that, Paul. I think
that's all right. I just want to plug my little layout book that I've got on Amazon. Have you seen
the
that?
The floor is yours. You plug whatever you need to plug.
I've started doing some what do you call it? KDP. They're Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing books. These are books that are the sorts of useful layout books that I like and I need and I want, and they don't exist, or they exist but they're not the way I want them. Not exactly the way I want them. And so the first one I've done is a comic book layout book, which is essentially 6 layout pages, American comic size per page. It's 120 pages, but importantly, and this is the thing that's different about me and other people, is I'm going to print it on every other page. So you've got layouts on one page and a blank bit on the other, because I don't like drawing on the back of something. So
plus you've got space for notes in as well.
Yeah, space for notes and space to kind of just not have anything there. So that's these books are the way I like to do things. So I've got that up there. I'm doing today a similar one for storyboards for film, TV, and they've all got nice covers that I've kind of painted in Procreate. So they're kind of nice plain covers, but with a white spine, so you can stack them beside each other and see what's on them very neatly. And I'm looking into doing a kind of Pomodoro diary type thing, where
don't call it the Pomodoro diary.
I can't call it that. Oh, he'd be after me. Do you know how much he charges for training people to teach this technique? He can charge companies up to like 1,500 quid for training to teach other people how to do it. And you got all that for free.
So for that, make sure you click on the link and buy some of Paul's not Pomodoro books.
Yeah, and also don't forget to buy String Bags, which is on it's still available on Amazon and other outlets. And anyway, there we go.
All be in the description below, buddy. That's absolutely, because I saw you post about the storyboard, the page layout books today, and I thought that's a brilliant idea. I didn't realise that it was you that was actually making them.
Oh yeah, it's me doing it. I basically sat down and went, yes, here's the thing to do. I actually think, having done one, I think they're kind of handy they might be useful for writers. And I'll tell you why. My friend Rob Williams, I know when he writes something, what he will do is he will start drawing pages on as layouts. So he will draw the pages of a story so he can get the story beats down. And I mean, comics are unusual in that you want beats on every page. You've got physical page turns, and there's no way to denote that in a note app, whereas this shows you what a physical page looks like. So you can write down, here's the monster reveal, and then you go, oh, those 2 pages are facing, so we maybe need to move that to another page. So that's kind of so as for a writer, they're actually, I think, probably quite useful.
And I know loads of artists that will find that incredibly helpful, so make sure you go and buy them and support.
And at some point I'll be doing a range of them with different colors of covers, because I kind of want to be able to, ideally you really want one book per project. So this is about, you could theoretically do 56 books in one of these, but you'll never do that. You might do 3 or 4 strips in it and then move on to another book, and so I mean, none of my sketchbooks ever get to the halfway mark in the filled
That's pages. Why you've got so many. I remember when you was going through them the other week on Twitter. You were just like, it was like that bit in 7 where they find John Doe's apartment, and there's just all these handwritten notebooks. It's just like someone's got to go through these for like a lifetime, and it's just like random sketches.
Do you know what? I still have a load of them. I bunged a load on and sold them to people, thinking, well, maybe people would like a unique sketch, not like here's a sketchbook of printed stuff and everyone's getting the same sketchbook. Here's a unique sketchbook of sketches I've done in that sketchbook, and you can buy that, and people bought them. But I've still got a load that they wouldn't even make the mark for me to sell. They're like, well, I don't know if I'd let anyone see this. So these are just going to go on a pyre for burning. That's they'll go on my Valkyrie funeral pyre. Just in there. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much, Matt.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. All Paul's details will be in the description as well, so you can annoy the crap out of him on Twitter and stuff like that. Remember, if I can make comics, Anyone can. Thanks, guys.
Bye.